Dreams and moans and bats and bones and teenage monsters in haunted homes, a ghost on the stair, a vampire's fight. Beware, there's a full moon tonight.
Big fat bug right in my spider web. Virginia, are you crazy? You're bad. Bad.
You were not supposed to play spider anymore. Animal spiders creep and crawl, boys and ghouls having a ball. Frankenstein, Dracula, and even the mummy are sure to end up in somebody's tummy. Elizabeth!
Bruno, Virginia hurt somebody real bad. You ought to hate her.
Elizabeth, how many times have I told you it's not nice to hate Frankenstein, Dracula, and even the mummy are sure to end up in somebody's tummy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Apple with the Las Vegas Seniors, and this is my dear, talented friend, Beverly Washburn. Bev has been in hundreds of movies, TV, and films over her lifetime, with Old Yeller being the most remembered. Then there's Wagon Train, Leave It to Beaver, Gidget, Star Trek, Father Knows Best, Dragnet, Disney movies, Shane, and The Greatest Show on Earth. And that's just a few of them. I had the privilege of acting in 3 short films that my daughter Terry wrote, acted, and directed in, and the 3 of us starred in. How fun was that?
It was fabulous.
Anyway, you write for the Vegas Voice, and you have met so many celebrities. Who are some of your favorites?
Oh gosh, well, you're one of my favorites for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and hi everybody. Thanks for tuning in. You know, it's hard to say who my favorite was because I have so many. I feel very blessed that I got to work with some of the legends like Loretta Young and Bing Crosby and Jack Benny.
Margaret O'Brien.
And, Margaret O'Brien, who I always looked up to. She was kind of a mentor. And we did a little radio thing last year, and I got to finally meet her, and she was just darling. So over the years, because I started quite young, as you know, I just had this fortune to be able to meet so many wonderful people, but I was too young to really appreciate it at the time. Like when I was directed by Cecil B. DeMille in The Greatest Show on Earth, and George Stevens in Shane, and Frank Capra in Here Comes the Groom. I was too young to appreciate it, you know, because I was a child. So it wasn't until I became an adult that I realized just what a blessing that was, and I'm very grateful.
How old were you when you started in Old Yeller?
In Old Yeller, I think I was like 12 or 13.
Really? You looked younger.
Well, now I look old, but back in the day, I usually played younger. Like when I did Here Comes the Groom with Bing Crosby, I was actually almost 7. I was 6 or 7, and they wanted me to be 5. And they wanted me not to have any front teeth. So what they did, I played a French war orphan. So every morning I would go into the makeup room, and they would, it wasn't really paint, but it looked kind of like paint, like a little bottle of black paint. And they would put that on my front teeth, so when I would smile, it looked like I didn't have my front teeth.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so cute. Well, also, how about some of the other ones, like Leave It to Beaver, Tony Dow? I did a show with you all at the Orleans.
Yeah.
And that was so good. That was a radio show, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we did
radio reenactments. And Tony Dow, as all of you will remember as Wally Cleaver, he truly was one of the sweetest. He was so humble that if you had never watched Leave It to Beaver and you would meet him on the street, you would never know that he was an actor. He was so down to earth and just the sweetest guy. In fact, he wrote the foreword for my book, and we remained friends up until the time he passed away. Wow. That was a tremendous loss. He was just
nice guy.
One of my all-time favorites for
And his wife I knew from Kansas City years ago, which was funny when I met her at one of your book signings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the new rage is Spider Baby, right?
Well,
and there's a resurgence of the cover and conversations with, what's his name, Rob Zombie.
Rob Zombie. Yeah, anybody who's a horror fan will know who Rob Zombie is. And he just did the soundtrack. He asked me to be on the cover of it. So I was really honored to do that. Spider Baby is a movie that's like over 50 years old. And it was a very low budget film. I think it was like $11. No.
Really?
We filmed it in 13 days, and it starred Lon Chaney Jr.
Wow.
And it kind of just sat there after we filmed it. And then Quentin Tarantino, who's kind of a quirky little guy, as we all know, he was good friends with Jack Hill, who is the writer and director of Spider Baby. And he saw it, and he loved it, because, you know, he likes strange little movies. So he was instrumental in getting it re-released, and now it's global. It's all over the internet. It's called Spider Baby. In fact, they're going to have a screening of it this October 26th at 7 o'clock at the new Beverly Theater, which has nothing to do with me. It was just coincidentally,
is that here?
In Las Vegas.
Oh, we have to go to that.
Yeah, if you haven't been to the Beverly Theater, you must check it out. It's beautiful, and it's named for Beverly Rogers, who people will know. She's done so much for the community. And so the showing of Spider Baby will be at 7 o'clock at the Beverly Theater on Saturday, October 26th. And they asked me to be there to do a Q&A afterwards.
Oh, how fun.
So
That's great. Is that the one where the spider is like attacking your face?
No, that was actually the remake. That they just did, believe it or not, they did a remake of Spider Baby. And that came out a few months ago, and I just did a cameo in that because it wasn't a sequel. And when I did the original, I was actually, I think, 20 at the time, but I was playing like 16 or 17. And so in the movie, I couldn't recreate any of the, the roles in the movie. So, but they wanted me to be in it because I'm sadly the only one still alive from the movie.
Oh wow,
so
really?
So they wrote a little cameo, but that's a different one, the one with the spider hanging. That's the remake.
Oh my gosh! So what did you do? I know Loretta Young. You were in that, and I remember her. We were little kids then. I know that, and she would come through the door and turn around, and she always wore a big skirt. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was like a really good friend of yours, wasn't she?
She was like my second mother. I was so fortunate to work with her, and she had her original show called Letters to Loretta, and it was called that because it was based on actual fan letters that people would write in.
Oh, fun.
And then the screenwriters would, take the letters and turn it into an episode. And then after a while, they decided to just, do episodic things. And so once a week it would be, and then they changed it to the Loretta Young Show.
That's what I remember.
So that's when I worked for her, or with her and for her. And I did 3 or 4 episodes. And we just clicked kind of, and she sort of took me under her wing, so to speak. And then years later, when I was 19, she did a show called The New Loretta Young Show. But we were opposite a show called Ben Casey. Do you remember that show?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Well, Ben Casey was a very popular show, and we were opposite it, so the ratings were not very good. And so it only lasted 1 season. But I played one of her daughters, and now it's out on DVD, but her son, Christopher, changed the name from the Loretta Young Show to Christine's Children, because in this show she played, her name was Christine, and she had 7 children, and I was one of her 7 children. And we stayed in touch up until the time she died, and she was the sweetest person, and she would invite, there were 7 of us that played her children, and she would have us over for dinner, and she was just a wonderful lady. And then we stayed in touch after that, after the series ended.
Oh wow.
And my husband sadly was dying of cancer during this particular time, and so she would do these really sweet things, like I'd go to the mailbox and there'd be a little book on angels.
Oh,
and then
how
another
sweet.
day I'd go to the mailbox and there would be a little crystal dove, and just do these really sweet things. And we would talk to each other every Sunday. She would either call me or I would call her,
She just seemed like such a beautiful lady.
She was
Really.
beautiful, both inside and out. And so this one time, I called her, and we were talking. And now she never wanted to be called Loretta. She didn't want to be called Miss Young. And she was married. When I first met her, she was married to Tom Lewis. So she wanted us to call her Mrs. Lewis. And then they got divorced, and she married Jean Louis, who was the famous designer. So then she wanted us all to call her Mrs. Louis. And so, you know, we all wanted to be respectful. So that's what we called her, even though we were very close to her. It was always Mrs. Louis. So anyway, I digress. So we're on the phone, and I said, you know, Mrs. Louis, you're such a legend, and people love you so much. And just wondering, would you ever consider doing another movie? And she said, you know, honey, she said, I get offers on a daily basis. I'm always getting scripts in the mail, but they're just not my cup of tea. They're not, you know, movies have changed so much, she said, when she was working. And she said, you know, the content and everything, there's too much sex and violence, and everything's AI, and, you know, everything's, she said, it's just not something I would want to do.
Wow.
And I said, I understand. And then she said, besides, I'm too old, I'm too tired.
And she was probably
and I'm
younger
too
than we
rich.
are. Right.
Yeah, too tired, too old, and too rich.
Wow.
And then she started laughing, which was really cute, 'cause she laughed at her own joke. It was, because she was the sweetest lady in the world, but I wouldn't call her like a funny person. Like, so it wasn't like she was
seemed
always
elegant.
laughing. Very elegant
Yeah.
and beautiful. Yeah.
Was her real name Loretta Young? Was that her real name?
You know, I never looked that up. I don't know. I just called her Mrs.
Oh, because I
Mrs.
wonder why they
Louis.
didn't call her Mrs. Young
Oh.
or Miss Young.
Well, that was her stage name for sure. I don't know if
Yeah.
it was her real name, but when we worked with her, it was Mrs. Lewis, and then it was Miss
Wow.
Louis.
You know, I think I told you this before, but when Old Yeller came out, my mother would not let me see it because the dog
sad.
died in the movie.
I know.
And I told you that of all the things that I've seen you in,
You still have never seen it.
never. And I know you have it at your house, so I'll have to come over and watch it. But I'm not kidding. I never saw it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, grown men have come up to me and said, "I can't watch it. It's too sad."
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
really? Oh, that's so
And,
funny.
But for people who don't know this, some of you may already know it. Old Yeller, the dog, his real name was Spike, and he was a rescue dog. They got him in an animal shelter and trained him. And I always joke that his dressing room was bigger than mine. But he was a
And
fabulous
his clothes.
dog. Yeah,
His
right.
clothes were nicer.
He was a fabulous dog. And like when they filmed Lassie, they would have several collies because a lot of collies look the same, and they would bring in whichever collie did best, whatever they needed, you know, done at the time for the scene, like whether it was to fetch or run or sit up or roll over. And then when they did Rin Tin, they had a lot of German Shepherds because they oftentimes look exactly alike. But with Old Yeller, he was a rescue, and they only had one of him.
Wow.
So he did everything. He did
But that
everything.
was before Rin Tin Tin and before Lassie, wasn't it?
No.
During the same time?
Well,
Era, same area?
No, I think it was in 1956, so
Oh,
I can't
so maybe
remember.
it was.
But the TV show Lassie and Rin Tin Tin.
You have a lot of book signings, which I've gone to with you, I think, a couple times. And you've been traveling even to Italy, which was your first time to Italy. And how fabulous was this? Did you just love it?
It was wonderful, and the Italians were so warm and welcoming, and it was so beautiful, and it was all about the food and wine. It was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, there were a few of us that had done it was a Star Trek convention, actually. It wasn't really a book signing in Italy. It was a Star Trek convention, and so they invited, there were like 8 of us, and then they had a translator for us, although a lot of people spoke English there. It was surprising.
Huh.
And but the book
That's
signings,
great.
I've been doing those various places all over the country, and that's been.
I know you go to California and you're going to Florida.
Yeah.
And
I was in Pennsylvania,
Missouri.
and Ohio, and Missouri,
Wow.
and yeah, it's been fun meeting all the people, and it's very
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it's very gratifying, and the people are so warm and welcoming.
Well, you're warm and welcoming,
well,
and
you
you're so
are.
nice. Well, no, you are, but you're like that with everybody. So it's
Well,
like
thank you.
it's like easy to get to know you. Anyway, I guess do we have anything we want to add to all of this other than just having a great life up here in Las Vegas, Henderson, Nevada?
I did recently do a little documentary called Here's Looking at You Kids. And there's going to be a screening of it. It's a documentary, and it's with Sharon Baird, who was one of the original Mouseketeers on the Mickey Mouse Club, and Mimi Gibson, who people will remember her from Houseboat with Cary Grant and Sophia Loren, in which she played Cary Grant's daughter. And so it's about the three of us. And so they kind of use that iconic line, you know, from Humphrey Bogart, who said, "Here's looking at you, kid."
Oh, yeah.
But because there's three of us and it was about growing up as children, it's called Here's Looking at You Kids.
Wow.
And so the screening is going to be at the Winchester on December 18th and 19th.
Community Center. That's a community center, yeah.
Yeah, and then it will be turned into a DVD, and it was fun because it was about growing up as a child and our experiences and being friends and, you know, and always rooting each other on. We were never
that's so
jealous of each other or, you know, upset that one of the other was working and we weren't or anything like that. It was, we would always root each other on and be friends. And here all these years later, you know, we're all old now and we're still friends. So.
And I've met them, and I love those
they're
girls.
darling.
They're great. Did Jay Nagel do the documentary?
Yeah, Jay Nagel directed it and produced it along with Patrick Powell. And we're really excited about it. So it's finished now, and now they're just working on putting it into DVDs, and then they'll be selling them.
Are they going to show it at the
They're going to
community
show
center?
it at the Winchester.
When is that?
December 18th and 19th.
Okay.
And then they'll be selling the DVDs afterward. And it's about 90 minutes long, I believe. And
Wow.
it's just, they show a lot of old film clips from the three of us.
Good. That'll be fun.
And then it's us talking about our experience singularly and then together. You know, we filmed it, most of it at my house. And it was really fun to do.
Oh, that's to let you know that I loved interviewing you today,
thank
and
you,
I
Hannah.
wish you the best. May
Thank
we
you.
always have this friendship.
We
'cause
always
it means
will.
so much.
Thank you.
When I've been sick or anytime I've needed you, you're there in a second. This is Hannah Apple signing off with Beverly Washburn, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Sit round a fire with this cup of brew, a fiend and a werewolf on each side of you. This cannibal orgy is strange to behold, and the maddest story ever told.